perfect world, I would introduce myself as a former bellarke or as a recovered bellarke, but that would be a straight up lie. And I'm not here to lie to you. Because yes, this specific shade of green makes me want to scream. The phrase together makes me want to slam my head into the wall. The phrase I need you makes me want to scream into my pillow. So yeah, recover would be a lie. And don't even get me straight on the heart and the head. And because sadly I have yet to recover, I thought I found the perfect little thing. These are the books by Cass Morgan, which is The 100, Homecoming, Day 21, and Rebellion. And I read the first one about 4 years ago. It was right before season 7 started, and I never finished it. Also because it's been so long, I genuinely don't remember anything that happened in this story. I remember characters not being there and new characters being introduced that are not in the TV show. But of course, I do know the I Want to Spend Eons with You Clark Griffin from book 4. Because I feel like every bellarke knows it at this point. But I think this could be a fun experience because I don't think I'm mentally ready to rewatch the entire show since the books and the show are different. This probably isn't going to realistically heal anything. From what I've asked around, it's like, it's kind of giving, like if you read just like fan fiction to feel like heal a wound. I did do a lot of, there was like a 1.5 years where I read nothing but bellarke fan fictions.
The next day,
I have read the first 5 chapters and I have gotten emotional to a degree that I was not expecting in the slightest. There's different points of views in the story and I did remember that. However, the first line is from Clark and it goes, "The door slid open and Clark knew it was time to die." And that line alone, I was like, oh, I can't do this. Like I am not prepared. Like I thought I was ready. I'm not. It's like, oh, she goes through so much. I don't remember what happens in the book, like I said, but like I'm thinking of the TV show and like Clark and like, oh my gosh, she was a baby and her life sucked. And then we get to chapter 2, which is Wells' point of view. And like, oh, I loved Wells. Justice for Wells. And I'm gonna read you a line from this chapter. "He was supposed to be at his history lecture, normally his favorite subject. He always loved the stories about the ancient cities like Rome and New York, whose dazzling triumphs were only matched by the magnitude of their downfall." And it's interesting to see like New York as like an ancient city, but beyond that, I've gotten asked before, like, why were you so upset with how this show ended? Like, aside from just like the bellarke side of it, because realistically, I was expecting like an open ending more than I was expecting canon, but that's beside the point. There's like character arcs and character relationships that I was left disappointed with, and then like the general ending. I don't know how to explain this besides the fact that I loved it so much and I had such high expectations because I had yet to be left disappointed.
Actually, no, that's not the truth, Ellen.
Well, that's a lie. But how can I get here without getting shady? Part of it is going to be super shady, but I mean, like, there's some actors that wanted to leave, that had to leave, that, yeah, I think you know where I'm going with this. When it came to that final season, I feel like they tried to do so much that it, like, ignored the characters, like, specifically the main characters. Like, why was there, like, a 4-episode span where Clark was literally standing in the same room? What was that about? Like, I still to this day can't think too much about how like the Blake sibling dynamic ended because I get upset. Like I get actually mad. Clark losing literally everyone she cared about. Like why did Maddie have to like not come back? And I get she was a kid, but like I'm going on a rant here that is not having to do with the books at all. Chapter 3 is Bellamy's point of view. As you can tell, I hate the guy. And then chapter 4 we have Class. And we're like, who the fuck is Class? She is a character that does not exist in the TV show. It's kind of like giving Raven and Finn if you put them in one, if I remember correctly, because I am only 50 pages in. So I could be completely wrong with that. So maybe don't listen to me. Anyways, they've just landed. And some people were fucking ejected out of the dropship. Like, whoa, that's a lot more graphic than the pilot. Okay, I'm like 200 and something pages in. I made a TikTok about this, but like bellarke kissing in page 161, like, whoa, did not see that happening. Like, I knew it happened early, but like I didn't think it was that early because it's like I went through 7 seasons and nothing. And here it's like halfway through the first book. You know, it makes sense that it would have been like, what is the equivalent of the day trip episode? Let's talk about that, huh? Can you imagine canon bellarke starting with day trip? Like, I would be a lot more of a mentally stable person if that was the case. I also just realized, do we get a reveal as to why Wells makes it onto the dropship? Like, why he gets arrested? Here we find out what he does. I don't think we do in the show. Also, Clark's parents doing some sketchy shit. Like, it's giving Welcome to Mount Weather. Like, Becca's Lab season 4. Except they're working on children as opposed to, like, the grounder dude, you know? Oh my god, I have so many things to say that they're all coming off as, like, jumbled thoughts. But, like, work with me. The parents in this book are, like, crazy. Because, I mean, like, Abby wasn't, like, the best mother, and neither was Aurora. But, like, in the books, why is Aurora, which I don't think that's her name on here. Like, she has yet to be named. Like, Miss Blake. She's out here trying to strangle Octavia. Yeah, you heard me. Book number 1 is done. I ended up giving it a 4-star, but I do understand that part of the reason is because I'm already emotionally attached and found it very interesting to see the comparisons between books and the TV show. And had I not I probably would have rated it like a 3, but on my count, it was higher because I felt really nice to be back in the world, even if it is a different world because there is a lot of differences, characters and lack of characters. The way characters looked, it's different. Like Clark is described to have green eyes and red hair, and like trying to picture that in my mind is crazy. On to book 2, where I'll probably go on to make a lot more comparisons. So it's been a hot minute for me, not for you. But there was just like a 5-6 day period where I literally did not read at all because TTPD came out. So I kept that on the brain. And something that has been kind of fun is seeing like the complete differences from the books to the TV show. Glass is that point of view that we have of the Ark, aka the colony, as opposed to it being like Kane, Abby, Jaha, and some of their names are also different. Like Jake, Clark's dad, his name is David. That's fun. Topic of changes. Octavia's a lot younger, which I had forgotten, and so was Bellamy. Also put like in an orphanage at some point. Anyways, I'm gonna get back to reading. These books were most definitely out of order when I showed them in the beginning. Day 21 is book 2 because apparently it takes 21 days for radiation to have some effects. Dun dun dun. On a side note, the show is giving Ravencore if you will. You know what else was giving Raven? Space Weapon performed exclusively by Luke and the rest of his highly trained team. See, I told you that like Luke and what was her name? Glass. We're kind of like the equivalent of an minute. Update, we have met Sasha the Grounder. I have to give a spoiler in this spoiler vlog. But I'm 90% sure she dates Octavia. I could be completely wrong. I'm probably completely wrong. It also appears that the 100 were the first group of people that landed from the colony to the ground. I think I know where this is going. I'm thinking Clark's parents are still alive and have landed. The lighting kind of sucks, but it's okay. I just finished the second book. The reveals have been hitting, the twists have been twisting. I have severely enjoyed this. I was left like aghast a couple times. So I'm gonna start book 3. Oh, I didn't see you there. Hello, welcome to camp. Let me give you the tour. The graves are that way. We sleep in here. The med kit is over there. Our wooden weapons on that side. Now take a seat. We're going to talk about our fellow campers. Have the gossip, have the tea. I haven't dived into the story too much, but we're going to start that off with characters. The story has 4 points of view. Clark, Bellamy, Wells, and Glass. You know the other 3. Let's talk about Glass. She is from Phoenix, aka the Elite, along with Wells and Clark. She was actually like homies with Wells, but like Clark didn't vibe with her too much. She gets arrested because she gets pregnant accidentally, and due to population controls, that can't happen. This is where she gets interesting, okay? Because the baby daddy in question, Luke, she reports him because he is over 18. He gets, in order to protect him, she gives them a different name. The name in question, Carter. He was friends with Luke, roommates, I believe, but he tried to essay her once, so this was like her payback, and he gets killed. Kind of a baddie on her part. And the day that the 100 were being sent down to the ground, she is able to escape in the chaos of Bellamy shooting the Chancellor. Once again, a baddie on her part. She goes back to ex-lover Luke, and she's able to like hide with him for a bit before her mom is able to like convince the authorities of letting Glass go as like, oh, people are saved and not everyone who goes to be confined doesn't make it out. And like her daughter, kind of a baddie for that. But she has since RIP'd when the ships were going down at the end of the first book. She doesn't make it. Luke is from Walden, which are like the poor people, similar to Bellamy and Octavia. It's not as interesting as Glass, in my opinion. We also have the character of Graham, and I'm gonna be honest, when I remembered reading the first book, I remembered him being a lot bigger of a character, and he's just not. He kind of gives like season 1 Murphy energy, but not at all. The topic of Murphy, here are characters that are just like straight up not there. Monty, Jasper, Charlotte, and why Wells is still around. Any of the grounders that we know, so like Lincoln, Indra, oh my god, I loved Indra. Lexa, Anya, Amori, Echo, none of them exist. We have Sasha though, who I remember saying that I remembered her and I thought she was gonna end up with Octavia. Not happening. Wells is her love interest. On the topic of love interest, we have a character named Lily, who Clark met as one of the kids that her parents were experimenting radiation poisoning on back in the Ark. Have I mentioned that happened? She was one of them, and she was Bellamy's girlfriend back in the Ark. Another like important character, but not really, because she ends up being a lot more relevant than I remember her being, was Talia, who was Clark's friend. She gets hurt when the dropship lands, and then she doesn't make it past the first book. Like she gets, the camp gets set ablaze by grounders. Okay, this is where I'm speaking about bellarke. If you know me, you know that I'm a bellarke to my core. Like, top 3 ship of my life, probably number 1 had they been canon. Honestly, probably number 1, even if they're not canon. Like, they consume my every thought. That it's actually insane. Like, bellarke brainrot is so real. And while they're canon, they do a lot of things that are very cute, and you're like, oh, they care for each other, sweet. The chemistry on the page is not that strong, and that is so upsetting to say. I am so sorry. I am so sorry. However, this is coming from someone who reads a lot of romance, okay? And I understand this is dystopian, not romance, and I understand that I can't judge it on that. But when someone says like, oh, read the books because bellarke get together in them, I'm expecting more. And I feel so bad saying this. Like, I feel bad admitting this, that TV bellarke, even though they're not together, hit harder than book bellarke. Shout out to Bob Morley and Liza Taylor, because their chemistry was giving, and the words on my page, not as much. And I want to talk about them as individual characters lightly as well, because obviously you're not going to get as much development in 4 books as you are in 100 episodes, right? They're not shallow characters by any means. Like, there is some depth there, but it's not to the same degree. They just feel a little less 3-dimensional and have like less internal conflicts. Granted, they've done less horrible things. They're not out here like wiping out Mount Weather, so like they're clearly gonna have less inner turmoil with that. And one thing that I loved about Bellamy in the show is that he was like a little pathetic, like in the best way possible. He was a little pathetic and like a little sad boy, and I loved that. And I feel like he's less sad boy in the books. And when it comes to Clarke, one thing that I really do like is that they're keeping her being like into medicine, and her being a medic, and her nursing people back to health a lot more than I feel like happens past maybe season 1 of the show. And then one thing for the con list of Clarke, I feel like she's missing that like edge, that spunk, that like in your face, like absolutely not standing her ground. She has less of that, and it keeps me wanting more. But you know what, maybe later in the series I have to keep an open mind, right? Like, I'm not done yet. But on the topic of wanting more, Octavia is barely a character. We know that she gets arrested not for being born, like it's not like in the TV show where she's born illegally, so then like, oh, sucks to be you, like go get in lockup. She was stealing food to like care for the younger kids in the orphanage, which like that's an interesting thing, and I really liked that element. Kind of have her in camp taking care of some of the little kids, which is nice, but I feel like I'm just used to her being like a total badass, and she's just not doing that. Again, she's 14, so like I need to keep that in mind, but she very much so feels like an entirely different character. Anyways, I'm gonna go do some more reading. Hopefully my thoughts change and we go on an up and up. Welcome to Mount Weather. I make myself laugh. Let's talk about Mount Weather. It is a place in the books as well. However, it is not ran by the Mountain Men. It is ran by grounders. They used to live inside Mount Weather, but then when radiation levels were like chill to go outside, they pieced out. And some of them even have like a little bit of trauma to go back down, but they're forced to when a group of bad grounders starts attacking the good grounders, aka Sasha and her crew. And then the Hunters will have their own little civil war happening with the colony people, so like a lot is going on. Before all of this, Sky people came like way back when, including like Clarke's parents. They stayed with the grounders. They discovered this fun little mechanism in one of the rooms called a radio, which Clarke is going to go on to use later on. But in the meantime, in that group of Sky People 1.0, is there, something happens and there's a subsection of grounders that then get like upset at the situation, and they go off and then they become bad guys. Clarke and Bellamy make their way to the mountain with the help of Sasha, because these are her people, because Bellamy had just gotten arrested when the people from the colony came back down. So he's arrested and about to be executed, so Clarke's like, oh, we gotta dip. Again, they have this whole thing where they like leave and come back and leave and come back. I think this is the 4th time they leave, maybe the 3rd. Clarke hops into that little room where she finds the radio and is able to contact her parent. Very cute moment, very sweet. Sasha's dad, also kind of a big character. He's like the leader of their group, and I think something that was really cool with the Sasha boss dynamic is that like they're both children of the leader. Anyways, I'll see you around. Try the chocolate cake. Thank you for joining us at the cabin with Glass and Luke. That little splotch of red is blood. We'll get to that in a second. Okay, we've entered the 3rd act of book 3, and I'm going to tell you how we got here, okay? At Mount Weather, I mentioned that Bellamy and Clarke had made their way there with the help of Sasha, and yes, that is true. But the only way that they are able to get there is actually starts off with Glass and Luke. So when the members of the colony come back to the ground, yes, the 100 do get pardoned, with the exception of Bellamy, who shot the Chancellor. The Chancellor also ends up being revealed to be his father. I don't know if I mentioned that. I feel like I might have. And I don't think that that's something like a lot of people who've never read the books know, but it's like a fun little tidbit. We have Vice Chancellor Rhodes, right? Bad guy. And he arrests Bellamy and has him set up for a firing squad. And the person who's gonna shoot him is Luke. Glass overhears this and is like, oh, I want nothing to do with this. So she's the one who lets Clark know so that Clark is able to get Bellamy out of camp. And at the same time, she gets Luke out. And she and Luke make their way to a cabin, possibly like this one, possibly one that looks nothing like this. And here, they actually end up getting attacked by grounders. So as we're having like a little battle back where the colony is, between the grounders, the sky people, you have Glass and Luke being attacked by grounders. Our buddy Luke here does get like pretty injured, hence the red splotch. But girl boss Glass is able to eventually get him back to camp. But anyways, I wonder where I'll see you next. Come on, let's go for a stroll in the woods, why don't we? Jokes aside, I feel like I have ended up on the opposite end of the spectrum as someone who watched the show and is now reading the books. Because at first, it was very exciting to be like reunited with these characters and seeing where they could have turned, who they could have been, stuff that could have happened. And now I'm just constantly comparing the two in my head, and because the books are not succeeding my expectations, which is my own fault, I understand, I'm being left a little disappointed. I'm a tough critic sometimes, okay? And like I enjoy a good like big battle scene in a book. And I feel like the third book was like leading up to that, and while I enjoyed the lead up, the final execution, like the big moment, was underwhelming. It was underwhelming, okay? And in the way it was written, it was just not it for me. And I'll get into the details here, but we lose the character of Sasha, and that it like hit me like, oh my god, they did this. And then I like stopped caring after. Like that's where it peaked for me, and being like, oh, this is about to get real. And then it doesn't. They're having like a Civil War moment, right? And I guess you could say, like, if I'm still doing the comparisons, it would be like season 3. As someone who read a lot of fanfics, that was often a trope that was used. They never really executed it to like its full scale, because here you have the Grounders and the 100 teaming up against the other people from the colony. I like that idea. I just think that it was not written in the best of ways. The only other time that I was like, oh, was when Vice Chancellor Rhodes has been injured and like Bellamy can take him out, but then he doesn't. It's like, oh, shout out to you for being a good person. But now I'm bored. I'm advocating for murder, but I'm disappointed in this book. Like I don't think it was bad. It's not like I wish I hadn't read it, but it's just not giving what I wanted it to give. But I did get to the I want to spend eons with you Clark Griffin moment, which I thought was in book 4. I feel like I was lied to there. I say that this is a 3 stars. So far, the weakest of the 3. And I am going to get on to the 4th and final book, Rebellion. I finished book 3 5 days ago, something like that. And I've been feeling very slumpy, so I don't know when I'm gonna get to book 4. I do plan on it. It's gonna have all 4 books. It's something that I do think I'm gonna need is for this next book to go into more of the emotional side of things, because I think I need to connect with these characters emotionally, and I haven't for a while now. I'm also curious as to how they're gonna wrap this up. So I'll be back in a couple seconds for you, and I don't know how long for me. So I started reading again. I think I took about a week and a half off of the series, but I'm back in. I'm 50% of the way into the book. This one has had a very interesting plot so far. So there is a new group that has been introduced. They're these raiders that call themselves protectors. It's giving cult. And they have kidnapped a couple people. Grams, Wells, Glass, and Octavia. Octavia has managed to get her ass kidnapped again. Clark and crew, Clark, Bellamy, and a couple others have gone out to go look for them. And I know previously I said that I needed like more of an emotional aspect to these characters to kind of feel like a connection again. And I feel like I'm getting that, because we had talks of Bellamy and his trauma at the beginning of the book, and how people weren't believing him when he says, you know, something's off. Like I feel like someone's spying us. I hear voices. He was right. Then you have him wanting to get back out there to go find Wells and Octavia, you know, his siblings. One thing I will say I don't think we've got enough of, in my opinion, is when it comes to Wells and his grief after Sasha. I hope we get more of that. And then lastly, we are having some bellarke arguments, which I'm not minding, because I think it works well in the development of each of their own characters, and you can kind of like unpack something there. But I will update probably when I'm closer to the end of the book. It's done. I would say this book had a lot of potential that left me very underwhelmed. Not necessarily that it's bad. I think it has good building blocks. However, those building blocks were not used. It was very mellow. I'm gonna give this recap on the shorter side just because it feels like not much happened, which is not what you want in the final book of your series. But you have kidnapped crew with the cult people, and it takes them maybe like 4 or 5 days for the members of the cult to start trusting them with information, which like that just seems stupid and unrealistic and boring. So one of the members left class into this information, and it's like they're all dressed up in these little white dresses, and they're gonna do pretty much like a mating ritual. Think of it like Handmaid's Tale-esque, right? And then they give you a little bit like brief history of, oh, this is why we do it. What's happening there? And then with Clark and crew, you have this character of Paul being introduced, who's basically just there to stir up like the bellarke drama, because now you have Bellamy being like, oh, has she moved on from me onto this dude? And like he was honestly very, very useless. Because like we already know that that's not gonna get in the way of their relationship, but it's like at that point, why include it? Like why include it? And then voila, at the end of the book, they save the cult people. The cult people also come into contact with other people from the Ark. That happens. Graham dies, and then you have Octavia getting a girlfriend. See, I knew that Octavia had a girlfriend. It just was not Sasha. Her name is Anna. She was also from Walden, same like sector that Bellamy and Octavia are from. You know how we had Clark's parents being built up for like 2.5 books? Yeah, they're kind of not very relevant in this story at all. The only thing is like at the end, Bellamy trades something with Abby. That's not even her name. What's her fucking name in this book? Clark's mom. Okay, Clark's mom, for an engagement ring. Like I think that's the most useful she is in the entire story. Literally the most into the story that I ever got was with her life had always been about learning to trust her brain instead of her heart. And literally the only reason that is because of the heart intent from the fucking TV show. So if you want to read the books to get over your bellarke trauma from the show, don't do it. Don't do it. It might just be a waste of your time. So everyone told me that it wasn't gonna help. It didn't. What a downer. All jokes aside, that is kind of a sad ending, isn't it? Because I really wanted it to kind of heal some of that trauma that I got left behind, but it didn't do that, and it just kind of left me wanting more, and it left me unfulfilled. So now I'm like they weren't the worst thing I've ever read, right? But like I probably won't think about book bellarke after this. It's probably like a 2.5. I think the first book was good. I would recommend reading the first book. If I would rank them, I'd say book 1, book 2, and then 3 and 4. Like it goes downhill in my opinion, so that's upsetting. I really don't want to end this video like this, but like I might have to. Let me brainstorm something real quick. Maybe my expectations were too high, you know. It's my own fault. Like my expectations might have been too high for season 7. Like I didn't go in expecting canon bellarke, to be completely honest with you. I expected something like season 5 ending, but then I got a bullet through the heart, so like that was earth-shattering. This was more like I don't even know. It was just so meh, which arguably is more upsetting in some ways. Like, well, it was enjoyable, but I think he might be the only one. Like, I'm not telling you to watch the show instead of read the books, but like I'm kind of telling you to do that. And one day maybe I'll be ready to rewatch it as well. That's gonna be a ways away because like I said, trauma. Which is quite overdramatic of me if I do this to myself. Like, girl, it's a TV show, get over it. But like, don't you think I would if I could? I really do think that like if you watch that show, season 7 specifically, when it aired, I think you should be entitled to financial compensation. Cause like there was something about being in like the midst of a pandemic, like not leaving your house for months on end, and like weirdly connecting to like the things that you did have with like social media and TV shows, books, anything that you had to kind of keep you interested and keep you feeling like alive a little bit, and then having all of that like completely destroyed. You know? Ooh, a pro. There was no weird alien test at the end of this one. No weird alien test. No glowy trees either. So anyway, stick around maybe. I'm gonna be posting like book and TV show content. Subscribe to the things. I don't know. I'm used to TikTok where you kind of just like abruptly end the video. So like a sign out is like kind of interesting. Okay. Bye. Maybe meet again.